There are moments in life, sharp and unexpected, that fracture the very foundation of our reality. You know the feeling, don't you? That sickening lurch in your stomach, the world tilting on its axis, leaving you breathless and disoriented in the ruins of what you thought was solid. For so long, you've built your life on faith, on trust, on the quiet, unwavering belief in the people and institutions you hold dear. You've poured your heart, your energy, your very essence into creating a sanctuary, a place of belonging, a testament to your commitment. And then, the unthinkable happens. It's not just a crack in the facade, it's a seismic shift, a betrayal that cuts so deep it feels like a spiritual wound. You discover that the very things you held sacred, the sacrifices you made, the resources you dedicated with pure intention, have been twisted, corrupted, and used in ways that mock your deepest values. The shock isn't just about the act itself, but about the profound desecration of trust, the violation of a sacred covenant, and the chilling realization that the person you believed in, the system you supported, has been operating under a veil of deceit. You find yourself standing at a precipice, the familiar ground gone, and the question echoes in the hollow space within. How do I possibly rebuild from this? At 42, you might have believed you had navigated the roughest waters, that you had found your footing, your purpose, your peace. You were likely a pillar in your community, a devoted wife, a mother who balanced the demands of life with a deep spiritual commitment. Your world revolved around family, faith, and the quiet dignity of service. You separated your tithe, your sacred offering, with a prayer and a sense of contributing to something greater than yourself. It was a tangible expression of your devotion, a symbol of your reliance on a higher power and your trust in your partner to uphold those values. And then, the discovery. Not a whisper, not a suspicion, but undeniable proof. The money meant for God, for the community, for the sacred work, had been diverted to fund a secret life, a clandestine rendezvous in a place far removed from the hallowed halls of worship. The betrayal wasn't just the infidelity, it was the audacious misuse of your shared sacrifice, the spiritual and financial violation that left you reeling. It was a betrayal of the highest order, a desecration of your most sacred trust. The shame, the humiliation, the sheer audacity of it all can feel like an unbearable weight, pressing down on your chest, making it impossible to breathe. You're left questioning everything you thought you knew, everything you believed in, and most importantly, your own judgment. In the immediate aftermath, the world expects a certain response. Within religious communities, the narrative often dictates a path of immediate forgiveness, a demonstration of unwavering faith even in the face of unimaginable pain. You are encouraged to extend grace, to turn the other cheek, to prioritize reconciliation above all else. But what happens when the act itself feels unforgivable? What happens when the very idea of extending forgiveness feels like a further betrayal of yourself, a tacit endorsement of the violation you've endured? You find yourself caught in a profound internal conflict. On one hand, there's the pressure to conform to the expected spiritual response. On the other, there's a primal, undeniable urge to protect yourself, to reclaim your dignity, to assert your worth in the face of such profound disrespect. This is where the journey truly begins, not on bended knee to appease others, but with a fierce, unwavering resolve to stand tall for yourself. Your redemption, you start to realize, will not be found in absolving the perpetrator, but in the courageous act of reclaiming your own power, your own voice, your own sacred ground. This is the turning point, the moment when the victim begins to shed her skin and the warrior within awakens. This is not a story of passive suffering, nor is it a tale of seeking revenge. It is a testament to the unyielding strength that lies dormant within, waiting for the crucible of crisis to ignite it. It's about understanding that sometimes the most profound healing, the most transformative growth, emerges not from letting go of anger, but from harnessing it. It's about recognizing that your deepest wounds can become the very source of your greatest power, your most potent wisdom. If you are a woman navigating the complexities of life beyond 40, if you have faced disillusionment that has shaken you to your core, know this. True resilience isn't found in dwelling on what was lost, but in strategically rebuilding what can be gained. The venom of betrayal, the burning embers of rage, can, with intention and a clear strategy, be transformed into the fuel that propels you toward a future of prosperity, purpose, and unwavering self-possession. This is where the real work begins, the work of strategic rebuilding, of turning pain into power, and of emerging from the ashes not just healed, but stronger, wiser, and more radiant than ever before. The path ahead is not about forgetting, but about reframing. It's about acknowledging the depth of the wound without allowing it to define your future. It's about understanding that your spiritual journey doesn't end when your trust is broken. In many ways, it's just beginning. You are about to embark on a journey of rediscovery, one that will challenge your perceptions and empower you to take the reins of your own destiny. This is about moving beyond the narrative of victimhood and stepping into the powerful role of architect of your own life, especially when the world around you seems determined to keep you small. The lessons learned in the fire of betrayal are often the most potent, teaching us about our own resilience, our own capacity for strength, and the undeniable truth of our inherent worth. As we move forward, we will explore practical strategies, not to dwell on the past, but to actively build a more secure and empowered future. This is about equipping yourself with the tools to navigate the complexities of life after a profound betrayal, particularly within the unique context of faith and community. You will learn how to protect what is yours, how to reclaim your narrative, and how to redefine your sense of self-worth. This is about understanding that your faith can be a source of strength, but it should never be a tool for your own diminishment. Your journey is unique, and your path to healing and empowerment will be forged through your own courageous actions and strategic choices. This is your moment to rise, to redefine yourself on your own terms, and to emerge as the victor in your own story. The first rule of rebuilding, the foundational principle for any woman over 40 stepping out of the shadow of betrayal, is to establish an unshakable financial fortress. This isn't about distrusting your partner in a new relationship. It's about recognizing that the previous breach of trust has illuminated a critical vulnerability that must be addressed with strategic foresight. Your financial independence is the bedrock upon which your renewed sense of security and self-worth will be built. It's about understanding that while faith is a guiding light, practical safeguards are the sturdy walls that protect your sanctuary. Think of it like this. You wouldn't leave your home unlocked after a break-in, even if you trusted your neighbors. Similarly, after a financial and spiritual violation, you must implement robust personal financial protocols. This means moving beyond the concept of a singular, easily accessible joint account of faith and establishing separate, secure financial streams that are solely under your control. This isn't an act of defiance. It's an act of self-preservation and intelligent stewardship of your resources. The practical application of this principle begins with creating an invisible emergency fund. This reserve is your personal lifeline, a financial buffer that remains entirely separate from any shared accounts. Its purpose is to provide immediate liquidity and autonomy, ensuring that your basic needs and future plans are never held hostage by external financial entanglements or the unpredictable decisions of another. Imagine a hidden spring, always flowing, providing sustenance regardless of the external drought. This fund is built through consistent, disciplined savings, perhaps a small percentage of your income or a portion of any unexpected windfalls. Crucially, its existence and accessibility are known only to you. This level of financial privacy is not about secrecy for its own sake, but about establishing a non-negotiable sphere of personal control, a testament to your commitment to your own well-being. By establishing this personal reserve, you regain a fundamental level of agency, ensuring that your path forward is dictated by your own choices, not by the financial leverage of another. Furthermore, it's imperative to reevaluate and, if necessary, legally redefine your financial obligations and entitlements. This is where the recalculation of debt comes into play, a process that acknowledges the tangible and intangible contributions you've made to the household and the partnership. In situations of separation or divorce, this involves understanding your rights regarding shared assets and ensuring that your financial sacrifices, the years of managing the household, contributing to shared investments, or, as in this specific case, the dedicated tithes, are recognized and accounted for. This might involve seeking legal counsel to understand the intricacies of asset division and spousal support, ensuring that your past efforts are not simply erased. The goal here is not punitive, but restorative, to reclaim the value of your contributions and secure a financial foundation for your independent future. It's about ensuring that the account of faith that was so tragically misused is balanced by a clear, legally recognized accounting of your worth and contributions. This strategic financial repositioning is underpinned by a powerful shift in perspective. Your value is not measured by your devotion or your willingness to overlook transgressions. It is inherent in your decisions and your capacity to act with self-awareness. The phrase, "My value is not in my devotion, but in my decision," From this moment on, my money only serves God and me, encapsulates this vital transformation. It asserts that your financial resources are a sacred trust, meant to support your highest good and your spiritual path, not to be exploited or compromised. This declaration is a powerful affirmation of self-ownership. It signifies a commitment to financial literacy and prudent management, ensuring that your resources are aligned with your personal values and long-term aspirations. It's a declaration that you are the primary steward of your own prosperity, and that your financial decisions will now be guided by wisdom, self-respect, and a clear vision for your future. This is the first and perhaps most crucial step in rebuilding your life with strength and unwavering purpose. The second pillar of your strategic rebuilding rests upon mastering the art of strategic silence, particularly when navigating the treacherous currents of community judgment, especially within religious circles. You've already secured your financial footing. Now it's time to fortify your reputation and emotional resilience against the onslaught of gossip and speculation. The instinct for many is to defend, to explain, to try and publicly vindicate oneself when faced with accusations or whispers. However, this is precisely the arena where your adversary, the rumor mill, thrives. Engaging in a public debate or attempting to prove your innocence often amplifies the scandal, drawing more attention to the very situation you wish to transcend. The most elegant and ultimately most powerful response to such scrutiny is not vocal defense, but a deliberate and focused withdrawal from the fray, allowing your actions and your eventual triumph to speak for themselves. Consider the dynamics at play. When a betrayal occurs, particularly one involving a figure of standing within a community, the rumor mill goes into overdrive. People take sides, opinions are formed based on incomplete narratives, and the individual at the center of the storm can feel utterly exposed and vulnerable. The expectation often is that you will participate in this drama, offering your side of the story, pleading for understanding, or even seeking to expose the transgressor further. Yet this reactive approach inadvertently validates the gossip as a legitimate form of engagement. It places you in a position of needing external validation for your pain and your truth. The strategic shift is to recognize that the loudest voice is not always the most powerful. Instead, cultivate an inner stillness, a quiet confidence that doesn't require public affirmation. This is about understanding that your narrative is for you to live, not for the masses to dissect. The practical application of this principle involves a nuanced approach to your community involvement, particularly your church life. Instead of abruptly disappearing, which can be interpreted as guilt or flight, consider a strategic, temporary disengagement. This isn't about abandoning your faith, but about creating necessary emotional and social distance. Frame this withdrawal not as an escape from scandal, but as a deliberate redirection of your energy towards your personal recovery and growth. A simple, dignified statement about needing to focus on personal healing and private testimony, rather than engaging in public discourse about private matters, can be remarkably effective. This positions you as someone who is prioritizing self-care and spiritual introspection, rather than succumbing to the drama. It subtly shifts the narrative from the victim in the scandal to a woman committed to her inner journey. Furthermore, consciously cultivate an image of power that intentionally sidesteps victimhood. This means refraining from public displays of distress or anger. Instead, focus on projecting an aura of composure and forward momentum. This doesn't mean suppressing your emotions entirely, but rather channeling them constructively. The glow up, the holistic transformation of your physical appearance, your professional pursuits, and your overall demeanor becomes your most potent response. When people see you thriving, looking radiant, and achieving new milestones, the narrative of your suffering loses its power. Your success becomes the undeniable counter-argument to any whispers of your downfall. It demonstrates that while you may have been wounded, you were not defeated. This deliberate cultivation of outward strength serves as a powerful deterrent to gossip, as it offers little fertile ground for pity or scandal to take root. The underlying philosophy here is captured in the powerful declaration, "While they are searching for my drama, I am finding my purpose. I have traded the pulpit of pain for the audience of my success." This statement signifies a profound internal recalibration. You are no longer seeking validation or resolution within the confines of the community's judgment, nor are you engaging with the source of your pain. Instead, you are actively constructing a new reality, one where your focus is entirely on your own advancement and fulfillment. Your audience is no longer the gossiping congregation, but the world that will witness your resurgence. This deliberate redirection of focus, from external validation to internal purpose, is the essence of strategic silence. It allows you to reclaim your narrative by living it with such conviction and grace that the whispers of the past become irrelevant noise, drowned out by the symphony of your unfolding success. This is about winning the war for your peace by refusing to fight on the enemy's terms. The third and final cornerstone of your strategic resurgence is the profound concept of redemption without the burden of forgiveness. This isn't about condoning the transgression or absolving the perpetrator of their actions. Rather, it's about liberating yourself from the emotional and psychological entanglement that keeps you tethered to the past. Forgiveness, in its commonly understood form, often implies a release granted to the offender, a lowering of the offense in their favor. However, true liberation comes from understanding that your freedom is not contingent upon their deserving it. Your well-being is a non-negotiable priority, and achieving it requires severing the cords of resentment, not necessarily for their sake, but for the sake of your own peace and forward momentum. This means redefining redemption not as an act of grace extended outward, but as a profound inward realization of your own self-worth and autonomy. This recalibration of redemption is particularly vital when navigating religious or community expectations that may pressure you to forgive quickly. The narrative often promoted is that holding on to anger or hurt is spiritually detrimental. While it's true that unchecked resentment can be corrosive, the mandated path to forgiveness can, paradoxically, become another form of subjugation. It can feel like you are being asked to minimize your own pain and validate the actions of the person who caused it, simply to maintain social harmony or adhere to a prescribed spiritual doctrine. Consequently, you must recognize that your path to healing is uniquely yours. It is an act of profound self-love to acknowledge the depth of your hurt without feeling obligated to grant absolution. Your emotional closure should be a self-directed process, focused on detaching from the negative emotional residue of the event, rather than on orchestrating a reconciliation of feelings with the one who caused the harm. Consider the practical application, stopping the relentless replay of the betrayal in your mind. This internal loop, often fueled by lingering anger or a desperate search for answers that will never come, is a significant impediment to progress. To break free, you must actively engage in mental discipline. This involves consciously redirecting your thoughts whenever they drift back to the incident. When the memories surface, acknowledge them briefly, without judgment or dwelling, and then deliberately pivot your attention to a present moment activity or a future-oriented goal. This could involve immersing yourself in a new hobby, focusing intensely on a professional project, or engaging in mindful practices that anchor you in the here and now. The objective is to starve the intrusive thoughts of attention, making them progressively weaker and less influential. It's akin to tending a garden. You meticulously pull out the weeds of resentment, replacing them with the vibrant blooms of present engagement and future aspiration. Furthermore, this journey necessitates a profound redefinition of your sense of deserving. At 42 and beyond, your age is not a marker of decline, but a testament to your accumulated wisdom and resilience. The betrayal you experienced, while devastating, can serve as an unintentional catalyst for self-discovery, revealing your inner strength and capacity for self-reliance. It's a harsh lesson, certainly, but one that can illuminate your inherent worth. Instead of viewing this period as a consequence of someone else's failings, reframe it as the universe's way of nudging you towards your own unacknowledged power. Recognize that your age brings a clarity and perspective that younger selves might lack. This clarity allows you to see that your right to peace, happiness, and fulfillment is not conditional. It is an intrinsic aspect of your being, and you deserve it unequivocally, regardless of past hurts. The culmination of this principle is a powerful declaration of self-sovereignty. I have freed myself from the weight of anger. This is not a forgiveness. It is a declaration that he is too insignificant to steal my peace. At 42, I am my highest priority. This statement is a profound act of reclaiming your emotional territory. It asserts that your internal state is not subject to the whims or actions of another. By declaring the offender insignificant, you effectively diminish their power over your emotional landscape. This is not about arrogance, but about realistic self-assessment and emotional self-preservation. It's a recognition that expending further emotional energy on someone who has demonstrated a lack of regard for your feelings is a misallocation of precious resources. Your peace, your well-being, and your personal growth are paramount. This is the ultimate act of redemption, not by forgiving, but by choosing yourself, unequivocally and unconditionally. The profound shift away from mandated forgiveness, as we've established, is not an endorsement of indifference, but a strategic reorientation towards self-preservation and holistic well-being. This isn't about forgetting the pain. It's about disentangling your present and future from its suffocating grip. Now, consider how this applies when you face the lingering echoes of betrayal in your daily life. The mental landscape can become a battleground, replaying scenarios, dissecting conversations, and constructing hypothetical confrontations that never occur. This internal theater, while seemingly an attempt to process, often serves only to re-traumatize and drain your vital energy. Therefore, the next crucial layer of this liberation involves actively curating your mental environment. Think of your mind as a sacred space, one that deserves to be protected from invasive negativity. Just as you would physically cleanse your home of clutter and decay, you must similarly declutter your thoughts. This requires a conscious, disciplined effort to identify and dislodge intrusive thought patterns. When those familiar replays begin, acknowledge their presence without judgment, perhaps with a brief internal nod, and then deliberately redirect your focus. This isn't about suppression, it's about redirection. Imagine a skilled gardener who, instead of merely hacking at weeds, gently but firmly redirects their growth, encouraging more beneficial plants to flourish. Furthermore, this redirection is amplified when you actively engage your senses in grounding activities. For instance, if you find yourself spiraling into past hurts while engaged in mundane tasks, consciously shift your attention to the tactile sensation of water as you wash dishes, the aroma of coffee brewing, or the visual details of the world outside your window. These micro-moments of sensory engagement act as anchors, pulling you back from the abyss of rumination into the solidity of the present. It's about reclaiming your attention, piece by piece, and reassigning it to the life that is unfolding now. Conversely, allowing your mind to perpetually dwell on past injustices is akin to trying to drive forward while staring exclusively in the rearview mirror. Progress becomes impossible, and collisions with the present are inevitable. The energy you invest in replaying scenarios could be exponentially more productively channeled into building new experiences, cultivating new joys, or pursuing nascent ambitions. Another critical facet of this self-directed redemption is the deliberate reconstruction of your personal narrative. For too long, your story may have been defined by the actions of another and the pain they inflicted. It's time to seize the pen and write the subsequent chapters yourself. This involves identifying and celebrating your inherent strengths and resilience, not as reactions to adversity, but as fundamental aspects of your character. Reflect on the qualities that have seen you through other challenges in your life, even those that seem minor in comparison. Did you demonstrate perseverance? Did you find creative solutions? Did you lean on unexpected sources of support? Catalog these instances, not to dwell on the past, but to build a compelling case for your own capability and inherent worth. This internal documentation serves as a powerful counter-narrative to the victimhood narrative that betrayal often imposes. Consequently, the practice of gratitude, when approached with intention, becomes a potent tool in this narrative reconstruction. It's not about being grateful for the betrayal itself, but about cultivating an appreciation for the lessons learned, the strength discovered, and the clarity gained. This might involve keeping a gratitude journal, specifically noting down aspects of your life that bring you joy, peace, or a sense of accomplishment, however small they may seem. For example, a mother might express gratitude for the quiet moments of connection with her children, a professional for a successful project completion, or an individual for the simple pleasure of a sunrise. This consistent practice recalibrates your focus from what was lost to what is present and what is being built. It shifts your internal dialogue from one of lack and grievance to one of abundance and forward momentum, solidifying your new reality as the primary architect of your own fulfilling existence. The journey of self-redemption, particularly after a profound breach of trust, often involves navigating the subtle yet pervasive influence of societal expectations. Within many faith-based communities, the narrative surrounding betrayal frequently emphasizes the virtue of forgiveness as an immediate and almost obligatory response. This expectation, while often well-intentioned, can inadvertently place an undue burden on the wounded individual, compelling them to rush through their healing process or even invalidate their legitimate feelings of hurt and anger. It's crucial to understand that this pressure to forgive prematurely can manifest as a form of spiritual coercion, subtly implying that one's faith is deficient if they cannot readily extend grace to the offender. This creates a complex internal conflict, where the desire to uphold spiritual principles clashes with the primal need for self-protection and emotional validation. The individual may feel trapped between the community's perceived judgment and their own authentic emotional experience, leading to a prolonged state of internal turmoil rather than genuine healing. Recognizing this pressure is the first step toward dismantling its power. It's about acknowledging that the path to wholeness is not a race dictated by external timelines or prescribed doctrines, but a deeply personal and often winding journey. Instead of viewing forgiveness as an immediate obligation, consider it as a potential future state, one that arises organically from a place of genuine strength and emotional resolution, not from external pressure. This reframing liberates you from the guilt associated with not being ready to forgive, allowing you to focus on the immediate and essential work of self-care and emotional stabilization. Your personal timeline for healing is valid, and it should be honored without apology. The spiritual mandate, when interpreted through the lens of self-compassion, becomes about fostering inner peace, not about performing an act of absolution that may not yet be emotionally resonant or even healthy for you. Furthermore, the concept of redemption without forgiveness extends to actively cultivating a discerning engagement with spiritual teachings and community discourse. It involves critically evaluating the messages you receive, particularly those that seem to minimize your pain or prioritize the offender's comfort over your healing. This requires developing an internal compass that distinguishes between genuine spiritual guidance and prescriptive dogma that may not serve your unique circumstances. When faced with pronouncements about the necessity of immediate forgiveness, you can respond internally by affirming your own process. This doesn't necessitate confrontation. It's an internal act of self-validation. You can acknowledge the teaching, perhaps even appreciate the ideal it represents, while simultaneously holding firm to the reality of your own emotional journey. This internal dialogue is a powerful act of self-advocacy, ensuring that your spiritual path remains aligned with your personal well-being. This nuanced approach to spiritual engagement also involves recognizing the potential for spiritual bypassing. This occurs when individuals use spiritual beliefs or practices to avoid dealing with unresolved emotional issues or psychological pain. For example, constantly quoting scripture about forgiveness without genuinely processing the hurt can be a form of spiritual bypassing. To counteract this, actively seek out spiritual perspectives that acknowledge the reality of human suffering and the validity of complex emotions. Many wisdom traditions, when understood deeply, offer pathways for acknowledging pain, anger, and grief as legitimate parts of the human experience, rather than as obstacles to spiritual progress. Engaging with these broader interpretations can provide a more holistic and compassionate framework for your healing journey, one that honors the full spectrum of your emotional landscape and allows for authentic resolution rather than premature absolution. It's about finding a spiritual resonance that supports your truth, not one that demands you abandon it. The transformation you're undergoing requires not just a strategic mindset, but a profound recalibration of your internal compass, particularly concerning how you perceive and interact with your own healing. It's not enough to simply decide not to forgive. You must actively construct a new internal architecture that prioritizes your forward momentum over the lingering echoes of the past. This involves a conscious effort to shift your focus from the event of betrayal to the evolution that is now possible because of it. Think of it as transitioning from a historical documentarian, meticulously cataloging every detail of a past offense, to a visionary architect, sketching blueprints for a magnificent future. This is about understanding that your narrative is not a static record of injury, but a dynamic story of resilience and reinvention. Consider the subtle yet pervasive tendency to analyze the past incessantly, seeking definitive answers or closure that may never materialize. This analytical loop, while seemingly an act of processing, can become a self-imposed prison. The energy dedicated to dissecting the why and how of the betrayal is energy diverted from building the what and where of your new reality. Consequently, it is imperative to cultivate a mental discipline that recognizes the futility of chasing ghosts. Instead of replaying conversations or dissecting motives, practice acknowledging those thoughts as fleeting mental weather patterns. Observe them without attachment, and then consciously redirect your cognitive resources towards constructive present moment activities or future-oriented planning. This might involve immersing yourself in a challenging new skill, engaging deeply in a creative project, or dedicating focused time to nurturing your physical well-being. Each instance of redirection is a brick laid in the foundation of your new self-defined life. Furthermore, this active reconstruction of your inner world necessitates a deliberate cultivation of self-compassion, especially when confronting the inevitable moments of vulnerability. It's natural to experience pangs of sadness, anger, or doubt, even when you've consciously decided against forgiveness. These emotions are not indicators of spiritual failure or a regression in your healing process. Rather, they are simply residual echoes of a profound wound. The key lies in how you respond to these internal signals. Instead of self-recrimination for feeling a certain way, offer yourself the same kindness and understanding you would extend to a dear friend navigating a similar ordeal. This might involve gentle affirmations, a period of quiet reflection, or engaging in activities that bring you comfort and solace. For example, if a wave of loneliness washes over you, instead of berating yourself for not being over it yet, acknowledge the feeling with tenderness, and perhaps call a supportive friend, engage in a calming hobby, or simply allow yourself a quiet moment of rest. This practice of self-compassion acts as a potent balm, soothing the rawness of past hurts and reinforcing your commitment to your own emotional well-being. Building on this, it becomes essential to recognize that your healing is not a solitary endeavor, even when navigating the decision not to forgive. Surrounding yourself with a supportive network, individuals who understand and respect your boundaries, who celebrate your progress without judgment, and who offer genuine encouragement, can significantly bolster your resilience. This network might include trusted friends, a supportive therapist, or even online communities that share similar experiences and foster an atmosphere of empowerment. The act of sharing your journey, when done within a safe and supportive context, can normalize your feelings, reduce isolation, and provide invaluable perspectives. It's about creating a personal ecosystem of care that reinforces your strength and affirms your right to prioritize your own peace and happiness. This carefully curated circle of support becomes a vital resource, reminding you that you are not alone in your journey of self-reclamation and that your quest for well-being is a shared human endeavor. The path to reclaiming your narrative, especially after experiencing a profound betrayal, is not simply about rejecting the past. It's about actively constructing a vibrant future that eclipses it. This involves a deep dive into understanding how your very identity may have become intertwined with the narrative of victimhood and actively disentangling yourself from that imposed persona. For many women, particularly those in their 40s and beyond who have centered their lives around family and faith, a betrayal can feel like an erasure of self. The trust placed in a partner, the sacrifices made for a community, the very foundation of one's perceived purpose can be shattered, leaving a void where a solid identity once stood. Reclaiming your narrative, therefore, is not merely an emotional exercise. It's a cognitive and behavioral one, requiring a deliberate reprogramming of your self-perception. This is about recognizing that the story of what happened to you does not define who you are, but rather who you choose to become in its aftermath. Consider how easily one can become defined by the wound itself. The constant rehashing, the seeking of validation for the pain, can inadvertently solidify the victim identity. This is where a conscious shift in focus becomes paramount. Instead of dwelling on the narrative of being wronged, begin to actively document and celebrate the narrative of your resilience and growth. This might involve journaling, not about the betrayal, but about the small, incremental victories you achieve each day in rebuilding your life. Did you successfully navigate a challenging conversation without resorting to old patterns? Did you make a bold decision that felt empowering, even if it was scary? Did you rediscover a passion or talent that had been dormant? Each of these instances, however minor they may seem, represents a chapter in your new story, a story of agency, strength, and unwavering self-determination. These documented successes serve as tangible evidence of your evolving identity, a counter-narrative to the one imposed by the betrayal. Furthermore, embracing your age, particularly the wisdom and perspective that comes with being over 40, is a powerful tool in this narrative reclamation. This phase of life often brings a clarity that was perhaps absent in younger years. You've likely navigated other significant life challenges, learned from mistakes, and developed a more nuanced understanding of yourself and the world. Instead of viewing your age as a limitation or a sign of being past your prime, reframe it as your peak of insight and power. The experiences, both positive and negative, have forged a resilience and a depth of character that are invaluable assets. This perspective allows you to approach the rebuilding process not as a desperate attempt to recover what was lost, but as a strategic application of your accumulated wisdom to create a future that is even more fulfilling and aligned with your true self. The betrayal, in this light, can be seen not as an end, but as an unexpected catalyst for embracing this powerful stage of life with renewed purpose and a clearer vision. Consequently, actively engaging in activities that foster a sense of competence and mastery becomes crucial. This could involve pursuing further education, acquiring new professional skills, mastering a craft, or even taking on challenging physical endeavors. The act of learning and excelling in new areas rebuilds your confidence and reinforces your sense of capability. When you achieve tangible results and witness your own progress, it inherently shifts your self-perception from one of vulnerability to one of competence and strength. This external validation, earned through your own efforts, becomes a powerful internal reinforcement. It's about demonstrating to yourself, through concrete actions, that you are not defined by what happened to you, but by what you are capable of creating and achieving. Each new skill learned, each milestone reached, adds another layer to your reclaimed narrative, solidifying your identity as a capable, resilient, and forward-moving individual. This is the essence of narrative reinvention, not just telling a new story, but actively living it into existence, day by day, choice by choice. Reflecting on this journey so far, we've navigated through the initial shockwaves of betrayal, delved into the complex inner battles that follow, and begun to illuminate a path toward profound personal strength. The seeds of resilience, once seemingly dormant beneath layers of hurt and confusion, have been coaxed into the light through a series of deliberate shifts in perspective and practice. It's as if we've been sifting through the debris of a collapsed structure, not to dwell on its ruin, but to discover the exceptionally strong foundation that remains, waiting to be built upon anew. The very elements that threaten to dismantle you have, in their own harsh way, revealed the underlying integrity of your spirit, demonstrating an inherent capacity for rebuilding that perhaps you hadn't fully recognized before. As we pivot towards the final reflection, consider the convergence of these insights. The initial impetus for change, born from profound pain, has gradually transformed into a deliberate and strategic endeavor. The understanding that external validation is fleeting has paved the way for an internal locus of control, where your own choices and actions become the primary drivers of your well-being. This transition isn't merely about coping. It's about actively cultivating a new way of being, one where past wounds serve not as anchors, but as stepping stones towards a more empowered future. The awareness of how deeply interwoven our financial autonomy, our reputation within our communities, and our internal sense of worth are, has begun to crystallize into a cohesive strategy for self-preservation and growth. It's like discerning the intricate workings of a complex mechanism. Once you understand how each part functions and interacts, you gain the power to repair, recalibrate, and ultimately, to optimize its performance. In light of these emergent understandings, the path forward becomes clearer, illuminated by the hard-won wisdom gained from navigating adversity. The echoes of past betrayals, rather than dictating the terms of your future, are now being reframed as catalysts for profound self-discovery and strategic recalibration. The journey has illuminated the power inherent in conscious choice, in redirecting emotional energy, and in rebuilding from a place of inner strength rather than external expectation. The cumulative effect of these shifts is akin to a landscape slowly emerging from a dense fog. The contours of possibility become sharper, the terrain more navigable, and the destination, a future defined by your own terms, comes into clearer focus. It's about the dawning realization that the power to rebuild, to redefine, and to rise has always resided within you, waiting for the right moment to be fully unleashed. The journey we've embarked upon, from the shattering revelation to the strategic rebuilding, has illuminated a truth far more profound than the initial pain. It's the undeniable realization that within the crucible of our deepest wounds lies the potent spark of our most extraordinary transformation. You came here carrying the weight of betrayal, perhaps feeling adrift in a sea of disillusionment, questioning the very fabric of your faith and your personal foundations. Yet, through this exploration, you've begun to reclaim not just your finances or your reputation, but the very essence of your sovereign self. The strength you sought externally was, in fact, an ember glowing within, waiting for the oxygen of intentionality to ignite it into a roaring flame. This isn't merely about surviving, it's about thriving, about embracing the wisdom forged in the fire and using it to illuminate a path forward that is uniquely and powerfully your own. You have learned that true redemption is not an act of absolution granted to another, but a profound reclaiming of your own inner sanctuary. The courage to stand tall, to protect your resources, and to master the art of strategic silence are not acts of aggression, but affirmations of self-worth. They are declarations that your peace, your prosperity, and your purpose are non-negotiable. The societal pressures to forgive prematurely, to minimize your pain for the sake of external harmony, have been met not with defiance, but with a quiet, unyielding assertion of your own healing timeline. This is the sovereignty of the spirit, the understanding that your well-being is paramount, and that your journey toward wholeness is a sacred, self-directed endeavor. The scars remain, not as symbols of defeat, but as testaments to your resilience, etched onto the canvas of your being, reminding you of the strength you possess. Now, as you stand at the precipice of this renewed self, remember that the true practice begins now. It is in the daily choices, the conscious redirection of thought, the unwavering commitment to your own growth, that the profound lessons of this journey are truly embodied. The narrative of victimhood has been shed, replaced by the empowering saga of a woman who, when faced with the unimaginable, chose not to break, but to bloom. You are not defined by the betrayal, but by your courageous response to it. You are the architect of your future, the master of your emotional landscape, and the unwavering guardian of your inner peace. Carry this newfound strength, not as a burden, but as a beacon, illuminating your path and inspiring those who may one day find themselves in similar shadows. Your story is one of fierce awakening, and the world is ready to witness the radiant power of your rise.